Will Serge Savard one day be back as the Canadiens Director of Hockey Operations? And were you as excited to see PK Subban as Brendan Gallagher was? Welcome to this week's show. I'm Adam Susser, and joining me today is CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak, Julian McKenzie from CTV Montreal, and Habs Eye on the Prize. And finally, it's been almost 2 years, and we have a second comedian on the panel. He's a Just for Laughs veteran, a CBC The Debaters veteran, among many other things. I've known the man on the Montreal comedy scene for 14 years. Derek Seguin, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you for being here. And you too,
great.
guys. I appreciate you showing up again. Okay, here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number one, is Brendan Gallagher the biggest PK Subban hater in the Canadiens locker room? Number two, why is PK Subban such a polarizing player for Canadiens fans? Number three, would Serge Savard be a good fit as Director of Hockey Operations with the Canadiens? Number four, nearing the three-quarter mark of a lost season, what are your impressions of Jonathan Drouin? And number five, if the Canadiens trade Shea Weber, could Jeff Petry replace him as the Canadiens' number one defenseman? Let's begin. While many people became emotional upon PK Subban's return to the Bell Centre last Saturday night, not everyone was able to express their emotions in a positive way. Brendan Gallagher, for example, was so moved by his former teammate's return that he greeted him with a series of checks, a flurry of trash talk throughout the game, and a quote to the media that read, "I don't know why we're talking about PK. That's what he wants. Let him talk about himself all night. I'm sure he'll give you guys lots of stuff." Wow. Looks like somebody completely missed the point of HBO's PK Subban documentary, Skate Past the Noise. It's safe to say that Brendan Gallagher may not be the biggest PK Subban fan in the Habs locker room.
He's certainly looking like a hater right now. Then again, I can't really blame him for his reaction. You have that matchup going up against Nashville. Everyone is just talking about PK Subban. I know it's hard for a lot of people to resist talking about this guy, but you have all that noise around you, and then you lose to him on top of that. I think Brendan Gallagher was just really frustrated. And you know, it was actually kind of refreshing to see him be frustrated and actually show that, because most people would have just said, you know what, I don't want to talk about him, that's it, and just kind of be mum about it. But Gallagher seemed genuinely angry and frustrated in the media. He looked really mad about the whole thing.
Because PK Subban and Brendan Gallagher are two very competitive guys, and they were at each other all game long. So I know some people were saying, why does the media keep talking about PK Subban? They need to move on from the trade. Well, that was a storyline from the game, so it had to be addressed. And it was just one of those moments where Brendan Gallagher was still heated after the game, and maybe they aren't friends away from when they used to be teammates, but he was honest. Maybe. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you can say something that maybe you regret. And we've seen this from Brendan Gallagher before. A few years ago, Josh Georges had to come out and speak to the media on his behalf because he was worried he was going to say something he will regret about the refs and get suspended for it. So he was just being honest. This was a storyline from the game, and PK Subban returned to Montreal and tried to shine. He didn't have his best game, but him and Gallagher definitely got under each other's skin.
Derek, any thoughts on that?
I'm just thinking that luckily we can't get suspended in comedy for saying something we regret.
That's encouraged. That's encouraged. Do you think there's more to it, though, than just, all the attention's on PK because he's coming back? Do you think maybe, everyone or so many people in Montreal love PK. Granted, he's done so much for the city that's so positive. But do you think maybe he's a little bit different on the ice or in the locker room with his own teammates?
He's a guy about his brand. And if this was a guy in the NBA or in the NFL or anything like that, we wouldn't be thinking anything different, because we're so used to these athletes being about their business and being about their brand and raising their profile and being loudmouths or quote unquote on that, because I guess in hockey culture they're not used to that. But again, because of the fact that it's hockey and PK's different, air quote again, you all know what different means.
Well, I don't know what that means. What does it mean?
He's got all his teeth.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
He's different again, and he's going to get flack for it. I just think he's a guy about his business, and I have no problem with what he's trying to do. Come on.
I think just the way that Brendan Gallagher talked about him after the game, clearly PK did something terrible to him at some point, like stole a girl from him, or gave him crabs. I don't know.
I'm not buying that either. I think
it's not just a conflict of personality.
Brendan Gallagher is one of those guys where if you're not on his team, he doesn't care about you.
No, but I think they go about their business very differently.
For sure.
Brendan Gallagher spends a lot of time with the Shriners Hospital, does a lot of fundraising for it, but people don't know about because Brendan Gallagher doesn't then put videos out on social media compared to PK Subban. When he was in town, him and his Nashville teammates, they went to the Children's, put it on Twitter, Instagram, everything. And neither way is wrong, but they're two different ways of doing it, and I can see where their ideologies sometimes conflict when it comes to things like that.
I'd like to give hockey players a little bit more credit. I think it's a little bit more than just, oh, he's such a big social media star and they're jealous. I mean, if you look back, PK Subban has had physical altercations with Max Pacioretty, David Desharnais, Plekanec, Gallagher, all while on the same team. I think there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that fans do not know about.
Definitely, and based on just the vibe that Gallagher was giving off in that post-game interview, it's not a... he's not on my team, so I don't care. He cares a lot. For sure. He was saying he don't care so much that you clearly could see that he care. He's like, I don't know. He talk about like, why are we talking about him? It's like I said before, he's like the Voldemort of the NHL. We shall not name his name anymore.
But look at all the guys who came out to see PK after that Nashville that win, and even after Gallagher's comments, there were a number of guys. Jacob Delarose was there.
Carey
Price was there. Alex Galchenyuk. There are a lot of guys who are notable in that locker room who came out to say, hey, what's up to PK? So I don't know if maybe he was that divisive, but there are definitely guys who were in his corner.
Some people like him, I'm sure. Why do you think PK Subban is such a polarizing figure for Canadiens fans?
Because I think he's so different than any other NHL player out there, and fans just loved him. That the moment he got drafted by the Canadiens, the first thing he said is, I'm going to win a Stanley Cup for this team. And unfortunately, his time in Montreal did not allow him to accomplish that. But I think people liked that attitude, that he cared so much about the team. It was the one that he grew up idolizing. And he was able to show personality, something that hockey players don't do. And as Julian said, that you see it a lot in the NBA, in the NFL, but not here. And then he gets traded away. And I think if he was traded away for a center or a scoring winger, people would have accepted it because you have to give up something good to get something good. But because he was traded for Shea Weber, a guy who's very private, you don't know anything about his personality, and he's a little bit older than him. So I think if the trade was done a little bit differently, it would have been easier to swallow. But look, we still talk about Patrick Waugh getting traded, and that's been so many years now.
Adding to that, if the Canadiens were at least doing a little better with Shea Weber, like they were at least a decent Stanley Cup contender, I don't think the trade is as vilified. And this is not to knock Shea Weber. I think he's done fine since he's been here, but he's obviously older. He has a much more bloated contract as opposed to PK Subban. Not to mention PK Subban is the ultimate winner of this whole trade because he's played better since he's gotten with Nashville. His role's been a lot different. His teammates are a lot better. And he goes to a Stanley Cup final in his first year with his new team. So it's pretty much like, you know, when you break up with your girlfriend or your significant other or whoever you want to date in this day and age.
Things go so much better.
And then things go so much better for that other person, and they're glowed up and they're putting all of their stuff on social media and they're showing off and all that. People get jealous and better.
I'm inspired. I'm breaking up with my girlfriend.
I didn't mean that.
Well, one of you is going to win.
I want my life to get better.
Are you a PK fan or PK anti-fan?
When they traded him, I was like, I'm boycotting the Canadian. I'll never go again. And then I watched Shea Weber play one game. I'm like, all right, this isn't bad at all. I like this guy. Because I do think that a big personality like PK in the Canadian, specifically locker room with Marc Bergevin as the GM, it's not going to go good. The Canadian have to be the bigger thing. And he was becoming bigger than the Canadian, especially because we were so crap for so long.
But they had a Stanley Cup contending team last year until, you know, they got to the playoffs.
But we didn't really. We got in the playoffs. We got way
not have a Stanley Cup contender.
We got way deeper than we should have. We had a Stanley Cup Carey Price.
I don't agree.
What we had.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When Carey Price is healthy, pretty much for as long as this Marc Bergevin tenure has been going on, and we saw it in 2015, 2016. When Carey Price is healthy, the Canadiens have a chance. But Carey Price last year was not at his best. Remember he had that whole period halfway through the year where he was giving those glares to Michel Therrien. He was not at 100%. When Carey Price is in his game, then the Canadiens have a chance. But when he goes down and when he's not up to snuff, the Canadiens can't play. They don't have a true contending team.
Okay, well, the team is super different this year. I don't know, with Radulov and Weber, and it was an exciting team. Most people were surprised that they got knocked out so quickly in the first
I actually
round.
think the Radulov trade was a worse trade than the PK trade. Radulov would have made a big difference.
Well,
on
he
our
wasn't
team this
traded.
year.
But Trinity was
Yeah.
let go.
Well, yeah, let go.
signed.
Not
But yeah,
protected or
but
whatever.
that's it. They didn't replace guys like Radulov adequately enough. They didn't replace Andrei Markov. Remember, Bergevin was saying this defense core was supposed to be better than last year? That's a joke.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to say stuff to the media. Yeah. When Chris Nyland was talking to Serge Savard just a few days ago on his radio show, he asked him straight up if he would like to be the director of hockey, the hockey operations director of the Canadiens. He responded by saying something to the effect of not looking for a full-time job, but I'd be happy to help. They've got my number. Do you think he'd be a good fit in that role for the Habs, considering their current management situation?
Well, he came in as an advisor after Pierre Gauthier was let go and helped Jeff Molson look for the next GM and eventually hired Marc Bergevin. I just don't know if he really wants to have a full-time job again. I could see him coming in as an advisor, but not that kind of role. I think he would be good because he's someone that knows a lot about hockey and is knowledgeable, but it all depends on, you know, how much time he wants to devote to, you know, being in the hockey organization.
Right, he's very busy selling financial services now. Right. You ready for your retirement? I sure am.
I think Stu Cowan had that article about Serge Savard a couple days ago, and one thing that stuck out to me from that piece was how Savard was describing how we deal with players. Say if one player wasn't getting along with with the coaching staff or something like that, you take them aside and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get this guy to play well for me. I'm just going to sit down, just draw out a lot of positives, and hey, you know what? Maybe he'll score 3 goals for me. And imagine having a guy like that with the team they had, you know, last year or years previously with a guy like PK Subban or other guys like Radulov, for example. Having that liaison may have actually been a pretty good idea. So maybe if not Serge Savard, maybe just having that guy kind of in between Jeff Molson and Marc Bergevin would just be the right call for the Canadiens.
And you got to read between the lines when Serge Savard said he's going to take somebody aside and give him a good tie. He's from the 60s, and he was going to take him aside and punch him in the face. You play better, bang!
I don't know, some people may need that.
We need to get Bob Gainey back. I think Bob Gainey.
I don't know, man.
I love Bob Gainey.
No. I loved him as a player. You
I
know,
love him
wasn't
as
born,
a
but in the fetus and in my,
administrator,
you know. Anyways, that's but you know, I love the history of him as a player. Okay, we're nearly at the 3/4 mark of the season. What are your impressions of Jonathan Drouin at this point?
You know, he's not playing. When he came here, he was never playing as a number 1 center. And now they put him in that role of a number 1 center. And it has been a struggle. Now, this year, it's like a write-off year for him. It's him getting used to playing with the Montreal Canadiens, playing this position that they've decided that he's going to play in. And so far, he hasn't been too successful at it. But then let's see if he's able to build off this. Or then the Canadiens have to make a decision if they're not going to stick to him as a center, when they would move him back to the wing. But I think right now this is their idea for him long term, is to be that centerman, and let's see if he can learn how to be it.
There was rumors this week though that they were going to switch him over to the wing.
I keep reading they're going to try him on the wing.
But they did in a game and then brought him right back. So
I think it's a combination of the teammates that he's around and the amount of responsibilities he's been given. Obviously, up in Tampa Bay, he was playing with guys like Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos and Alex Killorn, and the role he was given in Tampa was like a second-line role for the most part. So obviously, he looked as good as he did. And now, as you mentioned, Jess, new year, new team. This is pretty much a write-off year for him. You can't put too much stock in this first year. He's been given a lot to deal with, and not to mention, remember, he was put with like Max Pacioretty, who wasn't working out. I think in terms of, you know, some advanced stats, I think the combination of him with Pacioretty is like the least effective combination the Canadiens could put together. If putting him with a guy like Alex Galchenyuk, on the other hand, looks a little better. Stats have also shown that Arturi Lehkonen could also be a better fit as well. So I think it's just a matter of putting him with the right players.
yeah, but they worked out together all summer. Remember how they were
Yeah, I
selling
remember that.
so hard that they
I
could
remember
find
that.
the chemistry because they worked out, they skated together, and then
Yeah.
him and Pacioretty just weren't very good.
It just didn't work out. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes you try to just put these two people together, and no matter what you do, it just doesn't work. So it's a matter of putting Drouin with guys who work.
Okay. The trade deadline is.
I think he should play defense.
Defense? Do you think that we should start him on defense?
He's the number 1 puck-moving
Okay,
defenseman.
that's-
Derek, you might be onto something.
Listen, at this point, why not go crazy and just try crazy things? Maybe even put Carey Price as a forward. Who knows? Season's lost anyways. This is why we want comedians. They think outside the box.
Idea. Carey Price, a little known fact, he did play forward also.
Oh yeah,
Well, I
wow.
don't know about forward, but more forward than the net. So maybe defense.
Did you guys know that?
You know what? I did not know that.
Not in the NHL, but
I think
when
Derek
he was
just
playing
scooped us.
minor league
Well,
stuff.
this guy does. This is a man who does his research.
He did his
on the show.
research.
Maybe
I gotta get you
My
on that.
girlfriend
You did your
loves
googles.
Carey Price's wife, so we end up watching a lot of stupid Carey Price videos.
Okay. The more you know. The trade deadline is roughly 2 weeks away. It's believed that there's no one on the Habs who is off limits. Do you think if they end up trading Shea Weber, do you think Jeff Petry could fill the role as a #1 defenseman?
Not for the foreseeable future. I mean, let me put it like this. I think Jeff Petry's been doing an admirable job as the #1 defenseman in Shea Weber's absence. But I think if the Canadiens are trading away Shea Weber with the intention of having Petry as their #1 defenseman for years to come, that's not going to work. I think Jeff Petry being on the, he's in his 30s now. He's 30 right now. He's going to be in his 30s for the next, decade.
10 years?
Next 10 years, of course.
All right.
No, the
Math,
point is
that's
that,
math
no,
on the show,
quick
everybody.
maths, of course. But the Canadiens should be seeking a younger, more dynamic #1 defenseman. And I think putting that responsibility on Jeff Petry isn't the way to go. So hopefully, if they're going to have Petry as the #1 guy for the rest of the year, all right, that's fine. But I think in the offseason, Marc Bergevin, or whoever is the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, should be looking to fill that #1 role adequately.
That's what I think. If you're going to trade Shea Weber, you're not trading him to then have Petry take his spot. You're going to trade him for something in the future that will eventually be your #1 defenseman, either it be picks or a prospect from another team. But there's no quick fix for this right now.
That's enough of that anyway. We've been saying since '93, oh, it's for our future, we're rebuilding. No. If we trade Shea Weber, I want to get Wayne Gretzky's clone or something.
Good luck
Shea
getting
Weber,
that.
he's like our best player.
Good luck getting that with
and
the
what's wrong with
contract
him
he
anyway?
has, though.
I don't even know
He's
what's
got the foot injury. He's got a big contract.
Yeah.
foot. What's wrong with his foot?
He
to
started
the
the season. He got a puck to the foot, and he's been dealing with that.
Well, deal with it faster, Shea.
It's over. It doesn't
We
matter.
shouldn't just deal with it like that. Yeah, but good luck getting all those pieces for a guy like Shea Weber. That's why I was looking at a guy like Max.
He's got
Petrie.
missing pieces in his foot.
Oh God. I don't like that.
Okay, we need to end this now. I think it's time to end the show. We want to thank you all for tuning in. What do you think about PK Subban? You love him? You hate him? Fight amongst yourselves in the comment section of the video. I'm Adam Sesser. I'll see you next Thursday.